Hey everybody, this is Dave Dugdale, learningvideo.com. So this is going to be a quick recap of some of the things I saw at NAB. I'm not going to cover everything, and if I don't mention maybe your favorite thing, perhaps the Red Rock Micro Halo system, it's not that I didn't see it, it's probably just because it's not really in my wheelhouse. I mean, there's probably a lot of stuff I didn't see because this show is just so big. It's so massive. There's so many things to see. I was mostly going after things that I was interested in. And a lot of times I was just talking to project managers from like Adobe, asking questions that have accumulated over many months. Because a lot of times you just can't pick up the phone and call a project manager over at Adobe. It's just something you can't do. But when you're at the show, you get a lot of FaceTime with them. You can ask them tough questions and things that they might give you a tip that might save you hours and hours of time over the course of a year. That might save you like 15 seconds each time you do something repetitively. So one of the first things I want to talk about is the Sony lenses. I'm reviewing two of these right now. This is the 35mm, and I'm also reviewing the 55mm, which I like so much. It's probably one of the sharpest 50mm lenses I've ever used. I actually bought one. 35mm I've been liking too. I brought it around the show floor. It's so small and tiny. It's great. So one of the first things I did at the Sony booth is, they're kind of forcing us, or at least me, to be a prime shooter. And I don't really like being a prime shooter. I'd rather be a zoom shooter. I can just work faster that way. But unfortunately, using Canon glass with an adapter like a Metabones, a Comlight, or even a Photo DX, which I have in for review, they all have kind of reflection issues, which has been kind of a downer. And I'm going to get more into that later. But basically, their zooms are only like f4. And I talked to Sony and I said, are you ever going to do like a 24-70, like a 2.8? And they were like, you can kind of tell that they've been getting that request a lot. So, and it's something they're definitely going to look into. But one of the things, since I have purchased already one of these primes, is they don't have image stabilization. So one of the first things I want to try at one of the booths was the Sony a7 II. And that thing was amazing in terms of its IBIS, or I don't think they call it IBIS, it's in-body image stabilization. So basically the stabilization happens on the actual sensor itself, I believe. It's a 5-axis stabilization, and it was just wonderful. You can see some of these examples that I have here. As you can see, it's shaking the camera quite a bit here, way more than you think you would ever do, even if you were heavily caffeinated. As you can see here, the difference between the my A7S and the A7S II is very noticeable, especially when you're shooting with primes. Like here's an example of you just going up an escalator with the 35mm. I'm trying to keep it as steady as I can, and you can see I'm not doing that great of a job. So having some sort of image stabilization is very important to me. If Sony has kind of forced me into the prime shooting. Again, I'd rather be a zoom shooter, and hopefully, Sony is hearing us and they're actually build one. So when I was at the Sony booth, I definitely wanted to voice my opinion on what features I thought would be great in the A7S Mark II, or whatever they're going to call it. And who knows when it's going to come out, maybe late this summer. They're coming out with these bodies quite frequently. I said, I would love to have in-body stabilization like the A7 II. I told them I'd love to have a touchscreen. I would love to have internal 4K if they can do it. And I said, another thing I would love to have is just a simple firmware update. So where I can press the shutter button or the C2 button or the C1 button on top, that'll actually record instead of hitting on the side of the camera, that silly, I would almost say stupid location to where they have it now for the recording video. So they haven't done that yet. I hope they're listening. So probably one of the most impressive software features I saw was from Adobe. The new Premiere Pro CC, which is going to be coming out, who knows, the next month or so. It's got this new feature, and I think is probably one of the things I'm going to use the most out of NAB 2015, and that's their morph cut. And if it actually works, and it looks like it'll work pretty well. But basically, if I were shooting myself, let's say, and I scratch my head, bring my hand down, and I say, and I cut out that part right there. And let's say my head was over here, and then the next cut, it's over here. Well, it morphs this location to this location within, I don't know how many frames, but that looks like a really powerful tool, especially if you have no cutaway or B-roll to cut to. I think that's just going to be a fantastic tool, and I'm really looking forward to using it. So I got to spend some time at the Tiffin booth, and they actually had a kind of cool setup. There was two A7S cameras, and there was 2 monitors, and the person behind the booth was interchanging the different filters from their pearlescent to their black satin, and it's stuff I've never really experienced before. But it was really interesting to see the difference. And it was funny because the model, or the woman they had there they were shooting, I said, it's not really a fair example because her skin is like perfect. So actually I got in front of the camera, and he recorded several seconds of me with each of these filters. So down the road it'd be kind of fun to play with these to see what that can do in terms of skin tones. Now that we're shooting in 4K, I know Rodney Charters has talked about this a lot, but and he has a 70-year-old actress. She's scared about 4K, so using those sort of diffusion filters might be definitely some benefit there. So one of the things I've seen that was just a massive difference between 2014 and 2015 is not only what's going on in the booths, but what people are carrying and documenting their NAB experience with. And by far, I saw vast majority were A7Ss. Nice and lightweight, like I was carrying. I was carrying my A7S with 35mm because it was just a nice light package. I loved it. One of the things I didn't see were many 5D Mark IIIs, where the previous year, that's pretty much all I saw. And I definitely saw some GH4s. One of the things I didn't see, and I don't think I saw anybody carrying around a Samsung NX1, which I think is probably a wonderful camera, and I would love to test it. And one of the first things I did, I went up to the Adobe booth and I said, H.265 support? And he's like, no. And I was like, why not? And he basically said that, which kind of surprised me. He said the standard is not finalized or something like that. And I don't know anything about all these standards, but I was thinking, didn't they just ratify or standardize all that like years ago? And now manufacturers are starting to use it. So it sounds like Adobe's kind of waiting for things to settle down in the H.265 world. So once that happens, I know a lot of people ask me, when are you going to review the NX1? As soon as Adobe supports H.265, I'll do it. For me, life's too short to be transcoding, so I'll wait, and then I don't have to transcode. I'll do the review later. So like I said, I was walking around the show floor a lot with the 35mm and the A7S, and one of the things I used was this spider, and I'll put a link to it down below. I don't know if I'm going to really do a full review of this or not, but this thing was excellent. Basically what happens is you have a belt, and you put it around your belt, and there's this little piece that comes out here, and this screws into your camera at the bottom of and then what you do is you have your camera on this, and if I do this correctly, you put it down inside here and it snaps into place. This thing was excellent. One of the things I was worried about is when the camera dangles kind of off to my side of my hip. I was worried if I wore jeans, like Levi's or whatever, they usually have those rivets. I was wondering if the screen was going to rub up against them, but it doesn't. It falls below that. The only thing I could say about this is this red release switch. I wish they had made that metal because it feels a little bit flimsy. I'll definitely put a link to this below. What was great is I didn't have my shoulder strap. And after 3 days of carrying around even a lightweight A7S, you can kind of feel that in your shoulder. It just kind of hurts after a while, but I didn't get any of this obviously because this thing worked really well. There's the only thing I can say about this thing is I was actually at a volleyball match for my daughters, and I was up on the mezzanine level looking down at the courts, and my wife was like getting all worried. She was looking over me. You're not going to drop your camera, because I was, having the camera over the railing basically. And it, with A7S, the grip is not that great, so you could definitely see that falling. So this was actually a really cool piece for the NAB. I could see using this a lot just walking around town, especially with the 35mm like this on the A7S. It's such a small package. It doesn't cause typically I use an R-strap and it kind of bounces on my side as I walk kind of thing, but this doesn't really bounce at all. So if you're ever looking for an option, if your shoulder starts hurting a lot, I'll put a link to this below. Many of you probably know I'm on the hunt for a Nebula 4000 Lite replacement, or a 2.0 version of that, because I reviewed that. And basically I'm looking for a 3-axis gimbal in a pistol grip format, not 2 handles but just 1 handle, nice and small, lightweight, that'll carry an A7S, a GH4. So I went around the show floor looking for one, like a 2.0 version of the Nebula 4000 Lite. The Film Power guys were there. It sounds like they're going to be releasing a 2.0 version of that pretty soon, but I was also looking at other stuff like the Pilot Fly H1. It comes in around $700. It just got released. Unfortunately, they didn't have a booth there, and theirs looks very promising. It's 8-bit. Team Rebel Design, I totally missed their booth. I couldn't find it. I was searching all over the NAB app. I couldn't find it, but luckily Jason Wingrove found it. And it's the BHPP-01. It's 32-bit, comes in around $600 from my understanding. I can't find any information on their website, but if you go to their Facebook page, Team Rebel Design, you actually see a prototype that they took pictures back in February, I believe. So you can actually see what it kind of looks like. It looks very similar to the Pilot Fly H1, which is, to me, looks like a very much of a 2.0 version of the Nebula 4000 Lite. I saw other ones. There was one Shape ISEE Plus coming around $700. When I got to that booth, the battery I think was dead, and it was starting to shake a lot, so I didn't really get to experience it, unfortunately. Like I said, the new Nebula will be coming out soon from what the Film Power guys told me. I also tried the Came TV. Again, the Came TV, I believe it's their Mini. I don't have the model number right in front of me, but it's a 2-axis or 2-handle basically, and that one felt really nice. And I was actually following Frank, one of the guys from Came TV. I was following around. I said, "Go for a walk. Let me follow you and see how this works." And it worked really well. But again, I'm really kind of looking for a one-handed gimbal option. And I did talk to the guys at Came TV, and they're coming out with a unit like that. They showed me some drawings and diagrams of what they're building. So I'll definitely keep an eye on them. And I also looked at like the DJI Ronin M, which was very cool. There was a lot of people around it. I couldn't actually use it or put a card into it, unfortunately. And a lot of these places that I went to, sometimes there's just mobs of people and you can't spend quality time with it, and you can't put your card in it, unfortunately, and really try it out. So, NAB is great, but sometimes you just need to get the product in and review it and test it for 30 days. But probably the ones that I'm most interested in, just to recap, is probably the Team Rebel Design that Jason liked. The new Nebula that's coming soon, I'd like to take that and look at that. And the Came TV, if they come out with a pistol grip, I want to take a look at that one. Again, not two-handed, just one-handed for the stuff that I do. So in terms of cameras, there wasn't anything that came out that really fit into my wheelhouse. And if you guys know me, I like shooting with hybrid cameras, the ones that you can shoot great stills with and also shoot great video with, small package, large sensors, basically. Blackmagic came out with a few cameras. They came out with I didn't even remember the name of it. It's shaped kind of like a tennis ball. It's really small. And I guess it's for action cams and stuff like that. They came out their Ursula Mini, but then that's kind of big, so they didn't really fit for what I was doing. And then Canon came out with the XC10. I got to play with that one. The handle on the side was really cool. It was fun to play with, but again, not really a large sensor, and I'm looking for, I don't like going below a micro four thirds, and the GH4 is about, I think, the smallest sensor I want to go with. And I couldn't resist. I asked the same question I asked at the Canon booth last year, which was, I said, don't tell me what's going to come out in the Canon 5D Mark IV. I said, just give me your philosophy. For those type of cameras priced between $1,000 and like $4,000, DSLRs or whatever you're creating for a hybrid camera, are you going to add stuff, for us video guys like focus peaking or zebras? And again, the guy at the booth pretty much said the exact same thing they said last year, which is like, no, not unless the market demands it. We're going to stick all that stuff in our higher end cameras like the C100. So in terms of hybrid cameras, and again, that have large sensors like micro four thirds or greater, the XC10 really doesn't fit into that wheelhouse for me. I was kind of disappointed that they were saying that, because I think a lot of people are kind of waiting and salivating to see what the Canon 5D Mark IV is going to come out. I think maybe a lot of people will be disappointed that they're not going to be adding these type of features. At least that's what the guy at the booth said. He wasn't Chuck Westphal, but he was just one of those guys behind the booth. I was asking philosophy questions, and that's how he answered it. So a really small item, but I went over to the Hoodman booth and I asked him, I said, are you going to make some sort of eyepiece that'll seal my whole entire eye when I'm putting my camera up to my face for the A7S? And they said yes. And I think it's going to be coming out maybe 30, 60 days is what they're saying. So I'd love to be able to just slip that in there. when I'm shooting outdoors, and I could take it off, put the other one on, just throw it in my camera case. I think that would be a really nice solution, because a lot of times I'm holding the camera up to my face and I'm kind of cupping this area so light doesn't leak into the viewfinder. So recently I picked up an Adamas Shogun. I picked up actually used. I love the display, I love all the tools in it, but there's a few items that came out at the show that were kind of interesting I wanted to take a look at. The first one was the Blackmagic something assist. I can't remember the name of it. I'll put the links to it down below. But for $500, this thing will record full HD, which is pretty interesting. And it has scopes and a whole bunch of stuff inside of it. Although, you know, like any Blackmagic design product that gets announced, you might not see it until the next year, so maybe 2016. Who knows? I don't know if this is something that's coming out right away or not, but you know, they've gotten in trouble in the past for announcing something but not delivering it for like a year later. The next item was the Small HD 502 and their side finder. I got to play with that for a while. It was really interesting, nice small display. So if you're rigging it on like a Movi device, it's small and lightweight, which is fantastic. The screen looked pretty good. They shot some stuff like that right there in Las Vegas, like the monorail going by. And I noticed some kind of odd, it was like almost jitter as the train was going by. I didn't know if it was like a refresh rate issue or the way it was shot or who knows, but I definitely want to maybe get one of these in and test it against my Shogun. Because I don't know, the 7-inch size is really great in a studio environment, but having something small like the 502 in an outdoor environment with that side finder, I think would be a really cool device. And the next monitor recorder that I saw was the Pixie series from Video Devices or Sound Devices. I guess they're also called video devices. But this is really interesting. It looked really well designed. They had a solution to record to basically a USB stick that basically when you plug it into your computer, it becomes sort of like a USB stick, but when you plug it into the device itself, it's like some sort of SATA device. So really brilliant design on that part. Again, this is not a fully baked item because I went to the vector scopes and I couldn't see anything. I could just see the graticles around the color wheel, but I couldn't see any traces on it. So I asked them, I was like, when's this coming out? So who knows when this thing will be fully baked. You know, the Shogun is something that is fully baked. It's working. They're giving it firmware updates. They're adding new features like time lapses and a whole bunch of other cool things that are added. So some of these other things that are coming up now aren't fully baked and we might not see them until fall. Who knows when this will be out, but this is also an item I might want to test against the Shogun. All right, next up I want to talk about the GH4 firmware update. So I went over to the booth and I got to see their anamorphic demonstration they had, which is really cool. You know, it had two monitors side by side, one anamorphic and then another one they were shooting with just regular glass, I guess you could say. And the anamorphic definitely gives a very cinematic look to it. I'm sure you can get some really cool lens flares with it and stuff like that. And there are some new lenses coming out that anamorphic designed for like the GH4, which will be affordable. Probably affordable in this case doesn't mean I can buy it because I don't know, they're probably around $5,000 a piece. So it might be one of those things where if you do a music video or some you want that certain look, you might rent these type of lenses still. But it sounds like the prices are coming down and the GH4, that's a pretty cool option that they're doing. I don't know how much I would use it because it would have to be a pretty special project for me to go out and rent lenses. Unfortunately, they were demonstrating the V-Log-L. I don't know if that stands for light or Lumix or what, but the V-Log-L, I know Jordan Drake over the Camera TV store, they got a copy of the firmware early and they tested it out and he really enjoyed using it compared to S-Log on the Sony cameras. He said it was pretty comparable. So that's very encouraging. Unfortunately, it's not going to be in this firmware update and who knows when it will be, if it's free, if it's paid, if it's $200, I have no idea. My guess is we'll probably see it free at Cinegear come the summer. So fingers crossed that we'll see that because that would be a real welcome addition to definitely increase the dynamic range of the GH4. So that's pretty much it for the products that I saw that were interesting to me anyway. If I didn't mention yours, I apologize. Well, like I said, a lot of times I come here just to learn. For instance, I went up to the AMD booth and Warren Eagles, who is a professional colorist, I gave him one of my USB sticks with two different cameras. I said, hey, I want to see your workflow on how you match up these two cameras. And I talked to a lot of other colors that were like in the Sony booth that we had baseline, and I was asking a lot of questions. This is a lot of times what I do at NAB is I just want to learn. I just go in there to talk to the project managers or professional colorists and stuff like that. And then when I have time, I usually go out and look at the rest of the products and stuff like that. So if you're really interested in a lot of the products, follow somebody like newsshooter.com. They have great coverage. They highlighted a lot, I think, of the great products that came out. And there's so many booths. I mean, they must have missed a whole bunch of booths that they don't even know about. So there's probably a lot of stuff that we'll be hearing for months to come that happened at NAB. So that's pretty much it. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.